Okay, so continue our previous lecture. So there are the correction to the settlements due to the consolidations, right? So first one is a correction for the rigidity of foundation, right? So as per IAS 8009 part 1 1976, the rigidity factor equation is equal to total settlement of a rigid foundation divided by total settlement of a flexible foundation at a center. So the rigidity factor equal to zero point 0.8 is recommended by the code of practice for computing the settlement of a rigid footing, right? The second is a correction for the depth of embedment, right? So the settlements, okay, so the settlements below an embedded footing will be smaller than the settlement of a hypothetical footing at the surface, right? So the reason is the vertical stress increases due to a load transferred below the ground surface is similar than the vertical stress due to the surface load, right? So relationship between the average settlement of an embedded footing and the average settlement for the same footing at the surface, the figure shows the given ratio of settlement of embedded divided by settlement of surface called the depth correction factor for a rectangular footing of dimension L by B located at the depth D below the ground surface. So this is applicable for a soil with mu is equal to zero point 0.5 or Fox correction factor can be used in the computation of both elastic as well as primary consolidation settlement, accounting for the embedded effect in I, right? So in IS 8009 part 1 incorporates Fox methods, right? As you can see in this figure. Here a figure shows Fox depth correction factor. So Ramaswamy and Rao and Prakash gave the following expression for the depth correction factor, which means depth correction factor equation is equal to 1 divided by 1 plus h by b whole raised to zero point 0.5. Here h is equal to depth of embedment for the footing. Next is our source of settlement of foundation, right? So elastic compression of the foundation soil caused by loads giving the rise to the immediate settlement. Plastic compression of the foundation soil caused by the loads given rise to consolidation settlement of a fine grained soils. Repeated lowering and raising of groundwater level in a loose granular soils. Underground erosions may cause formation of cavities in the subsoil which collapse cause settlement of foundation. Seasonal swelling and the shrinkage of expansive soils. Vibrations due to pile driving, blasting, and oscillating machinery in a granular soils. Mining subsidence and excavation adjacent to the foundation of existing structure. Surface erosion, creep, and landslides in earth slopes. Structural collapse of some soils such as saline, non-cohesive soils, gypsum, silts, and clays and loess, right, may occur due to dissolution of minerals responsible for intergranular bond of grains. Frost heave occurs if the structure is not founded below the depth of the frost penetration. When the occurs, the foundation may settle. So the loads for the settlement analysis, right? So there are the loads are generally considered while uh, for the settlement analysis, right? So here talking about dead load includes weight of column, wall, footing, foundation, but do not include the weight of displaced soil. Talking about live loads mainly depends on the use of the structure. So those load may be taken from IS 875 part 2 1987 Indian Standard Code of Practice for Structural Safety of Building Loading Standards, right? Wind loads and seismic loads should be considered applicable if the wind or seismic load is less than 25% of the combined dead load and live loads. It may be neglected in design and only dead load and live load are considered. If the wind or seismic load is more than 25% of the combined dead load and live load, then the foundation is designed such that the pressure due to combination of dead load, live load, and wind load does not exceed the bearing capacity by more than 25%. For the foundation resting on coarse and grain soil, the settlement should be estimated corresponding to the full dead load, live load, and wind load. So, in such soil settlement occurs in a short time. So for the foundation on fine grained soils, the settlements are estimated corresponding to the permanent loads. So all the dead loads and live loads is also due to the fixed equipments are taken on permanently loads, right? So generally one half of the live load is also taken as a permanent. However, the engineering judgment is required to ascertain the permanent loads. So immediate settlement of cohesive soils, the linear theory of elasticity is used to determine the elastic settlement of a footing on saturated clay. So if the saturated clay is loaded rapidly, the excess pore pressures are induced. So the soils get deformed with virtually no volume change, and due to low permeability of the clay, little water is squeezed out of the voids. So vertical deformation is due to the change in shape is immediate settlement. So the immediate settlement of a flexible foundation according to the Terzaghi 1943 is SI is equal to QB in bracket 1 minus mu square divided by ES multiplied by I. So here the notation are immediate settlement of SI is equal to immediate settlement of a rectangular flexible foundation of the size L by B. Q is equal to load per unit area on the foundation. B is equal to width of foundation. ES is equal to modulus of elasticity of the foundation soil. Mu is equal to Poisson's ratio of the foundation soil, and I is equal to influence factor, right? So the value of ES is determined from stress strain curve obtained from triaxial consolidated undrained test will be consolidation pressure is equal to the effective pressure at a depth from which the sample was taken, right? So uh, if the generally taken as initial tangent modulus or same modulus, right? So for normally consolidated clay, the value of ES varies from 250C to 500C, and for over consolidated clay, it varies from 750 to 1000, right? Where C is equal to undrained cohesion of the foundation soil. So the influence factor I is mainly depends on the shape and the rigidity of foundation. The values of I for saturated clay layers as given in the table. So the values of influence factor, as you can show in this figure, the different types of shape, and with the changes in the shape, there are also changes in the center, corner, and average of the flexible footing size and the rigid footing, right? Alternately, the value of the 1 minus mu square divided by 1 by ES can be determined from the plate load test. A plate between the settlement S and the load QB is made, which is a straight line as shown in figure. The slope of the line is determined, which is equal to 1 minus mu square divided by ES multiplied by I, and knowing mu and ES, the value of I is determined. So if incompressible layers exist on a limited depth below the footing, the actual settlement is less than the given equation 2.33, right? For such a case, Steinbrenner gave a solution, right? However, if the depth of clay lay is more than 2b, the actual settlement will be not change much. If the foundation is rigid, such as a heavy beam and slab raft, the settlement is about 0.8 times the settlements at the center of the corresponding flexible foundation. So it is approximately equal to the average settlement. So the table 6.4, right, also gives the value of I for the rigid footings, right? For talking about immediate settlement of the cohesive soils, so the settlements of foundation of cohesive soils take place very rapidly after the application of the loads, right? So because of the difficulty of sampling cohesionless soils, it is not possible to obtain the stress strain characteristics of the inside soil, right? So the settlements are generally determined indirectly by using static cone penetration test or by using the chart developed by SPT test as indicated below, right? First one is a static cone penetration test. So in this method, the soil layer is divided into the small layers such that each small layer has an approximately constant value of cone resistance. So the average value of cone resistance of each small layer is obtained. The immediate settlement SI of each small layer is estimated using the following equation, which is given by De Beer and Merchants, right, in 1957. So SI is equal to H by C log sigma dash O plus delta sigma dash divided by sigma dash O, right? Here H is equal to thickness of the soil pressure, soil layer. Sigma dash 0 is equal to effective overburden pressure at the center of the layer. Delta into sigma dash is equal to increase in a pressure at the center of the layer, where C is equal to compressibility constant is equal to 1.5 QC divided by sigma dash 0. Here QC is equal to static con resistance, right? So next is the SPT charts, right? So the SPT can be used for determination of settlements of foundation on cohesionless soils, right? So in IS 8009 part 1, it gives a chart for the calculation of settlement per unit pressure as a function of the width of the footing and the standard penetration number as shown in figure, right? So the settlement under any other pressure is computed assuming that the settlement is proportional to the intensity of the pressure, right? So the settlements are in meters per unit pressure is kilonewton per meter square. If the water table is at a shallow depth, the settlements are divided by a correction factor which is RW2. So RW2 is equal to 0.5 in bracket 1 plus ZW2 divided by B. Consolidation settlement SC or primary consolidation. So in the case of saturated clay subjected to sustained loads, consolidation settlement occurs because the excessive pore water pressure cannot be dissipated immediately due to the low permeability of soil. So Terzaghi's one-dimensional consolidation theory can be used to determine the consolidation settlements as well as the time rate of dissipation of excess pore water pressure and hence the time rate of settlement. So the equation for consolidation settlement SC is equal to CC multiplied by H divided by 1 plus EO log 10 sigma dash 0 minus delta sigma dash divided by sigma dash 0, right? Here SC is equal to MV multiplied by H multiplied by delta sigma dash. Here, so compare these two equation. SC is equal to delta E divided by 1 plus E0 multiplied by H. So here H is equal to initial height of the soil layer, CC is equal to compression index, E0 is equal to initial void ratio, sigma dash 0 is equal to initial effective stress, delta sigma dash is equal to increment of stress, delta E is equal to change in void ratio, MV is equal to coefficient of volume change. So the MV is equal to delta E divided by 1 plus E0 multiplied by 1 divided by delta into sigma dash. So the time ratio of settlement of or time factor TV is given by the equation TV is equal to CV multiplied by T divided by H square, where CV is equal to coefficient of consolidation, T is equal to elapsed time from the standard from the start of the consolidation process, and H is equal to a height of the soil layers or the length of the drainage path, right? So the accuracy of prediction of foundation settlement as discussed in the previous articles is rarely accurate. So it is very difficult to estimate probable settlement for a footing of because of the following reasons. So first is that the soil deposits are generally non-homogeneous. They are seldom isotropic and linearly elastic. It is not possible to estimate the increase in stress due to the loads. Right, for estimation of the settlements due to consolidation, it is not possible to locate the drainage faces exactly. It is difficult to obtain undisturbed samples of cohesionless soils. The semi-empirical methods do not give accurate results, right? For computation of immediate settlements, it is not possible to estimate the correct value of modulus of elasticity. The rigidity of the foundation is usually neglected and the pressure distribution is assumed to be uniform. Settlements may occur due to the causes other than the due to loads. It is not possible to estimate the settlements accurately, right? So, permissible settlement, the maximum this permissible settlement depends on the type of soil, type of foundation and the structural framing system. The maximum settlement ranging from 10 mm to 300 mm is generally permitted for various structures. So theoretically no damage is done to the superstructure if the soil settles uniformly. However, The settlement excess 150 mm may cause trouble in utilities such as water pipelines, sewers, telephone lines, etc. So in 1904, 1986 permits a maximal settlements of 50 mm for isolated boundaries on sand and 75 mm for isolated foundations on clay. So the allowable settlement is higher on clay because the progressive settlements on clay permits better strain adjustment in the structural members. So maximum permissible settlement for rough foundation on sand is 75 mm and for rough foundation on clay is 100 mm. So permissible settlement for the raft are more than those of the isolated foundations because the raft bridges over the soft patches of the soil and the differential settlements are reduced. So according to general practice, the maximum permissible differential settlement is 25 mm for the foundation on sand and 40 mm for foundation on a clay. So if a differential settlement between two columns spaced at a distance L and right, L and you should call is eta or delta whatever, right? The angular distortion or tilt T is given by T is equal to delta by L. Common RCC building can sustain angular distortion up to 1 by 150 without any damage. So it should not exceed 1 by 300 as per 1904. 1986 give the safe value of the maximum and the differential settlements of different types of the structures. So proposing size of the footings, right, for equal settlements. So in order to reduce the differential settlements due to live load variations for the footings are fine granular soils, it is desirable to proportion size of all footings in such a way that they have equal pressure under the service loads. So all the footings would settle by equal enormous and differential settlements will be reduced. So the following procedure given by Tang in 1971 based on the recommendation of right week is adopted in 1974. So the dead load for each column including self weight of footing is determined. The live load for each column is calculated. The ratio of live load to dead load for each column is calculated. The footing that has a largest live load to dead load ratio is taken as a governing footing. The gross area, right, is determined by AG is equal to dead load plus live load divided by allowing bearing capacity. For the governing footing, the service load is computed by adding the appropriate fraction of the live load to the dead load. So the design bearing pressure for all the other footings is calculated as under QD is equal to service load for governing factor divided by AG. Service loads for all other footings are determined. The area of other footing is determining as A is equal to service load for that footing divided by QD. So bearing capacity of raft, a mat or raft is a thick reinforced concrete slab which supports all the load bearing walls and columns of a structure or a large portion of the structure. So a raft foundation is required under following situation. First is when the allowing soil pressure is low. Second is when the structure loads are heavy. Third is when columns and walls are so close that individual footing would overlap. Where there is a large variation in the loads on individual columns. And last reason is when the foundation soil is non-homogeneous and there are chances of differential settlements. So, like all the other cellular foundation, a mat must be safe against shear failure, and the settlement should be within the permissible limits. So, as the width of the raft is very large and the pressure bulk is quite deep, thus the loose soil patches under a raft may be more evenly distributed. So, this results in a smaller differential settlements than individual footings. So in IS 2950 Part 1 1981, the Code of Practice for Design and Construction of Round Foundation gives the maximum differential settlements of 25 mm for a draft on sandy soils and 40 mm for drafts on clay soils. So the maximum settlement should generally be limited to the following values. So raft on sand is 75 mm and raft on clay is equal to 100 mm, right? So the raft on cohesion-less soils, the bearing capacity of raft foundation on cohesion-less soil mainly depends on the width. As the width of the raft is very large, the bearing capacity is high, and therefore the shear failure generally does not occur. So according to the safe settlement pressure and not the bearing capacity generally governs the design except for a very loose sign, right? So the tank equation for safe bearing capacity can be determined as QNP is equal to 0.22 n square BRW plus 0.67 in bracket 100 plus n square multiply by D multiply by RW1. So the safe settlement pressure for settlement of 25 is given by QNB is equal to Q and rho is equal to 17.5 in bracket n minus 3 multiplied by RW2 unit kilogram per meter square. Here B is equal to smaller dimension of raft in meter and D is equal to depth of raft foundation. So Bowell's equation for 25 settlement Q and rho is equal to 20 n RW multiplied by RD. In case of width B which is less than or equal to 1.2 meter. So in general for criteria or width B less than or equal to 1.2 meter, Q and rho is equal to 20 n RW to RD multiplied by S divided by 25. So for 25 settlement, Q and rho is equal to 12.2 n in bracket B plus 0.3 divided by B raised to whole square RW to RD, right? So where the width is 1.2 meter. Where here there are some correction here, right? Here for 25 is less than 1.2 and is here greater than, right? So for raft on clay, the raft on clay may fails in shear. The net ultimate bearing capacity may be determined from the following. For Campton's formula, Q and U is equal to 5 in bracket 1 plus 0.1 D by B, right? In bracket 1 plus 0.2 B by L multiply by C. C is equal to undrained cohesion. So from Tezagi's equation, Q and U is equal to 5.7 in bracket 1 plus 0.3 B by L multiplied by C. So the net safe bearing capacity can be obtained as QNS is equal to QNU divided by F, where F is equal to factor of safety, right? So there are some factors which is affecting bearing capacity, right? So first one is a position of groundwater table. So the rise of water table from the below the foundation resulted in a decrease in a bearing capacity in a granular soil because the decrease in effective unit weight of soil consequent to the soil being submerged. So if the water table is at a depth greater than B, below the base of the footing, there is no effect of water table on bearing capacity, right? If the water table reaches the ground level, the rising from a depth equal to or greater than the width of the footing below the base of the footing, the bearing capacity could be reduced by as much as 50%. The effect of water table on bearing capacity has been discussed in Article 2.8. Next is relative density. So the higher the relative density, the greater the angle of shear resistance phi of a cohesionless soil deposit. Right. So the bearing capacity factors NQ and N gamma increase with increase in a phi, hence the bearing capacity increases with increase in a relative density. Width of footing, the ultimate bearing capacity of cohesionless soil when C is equal to 0, right? So QU is equal to gamma D multiplied by NQ plus 0.5 gamma B N gamma. So ultimate bearing capacity of cohesionless soil increases with increase in a width of footing. So in a loose granular soil, an increase in a width alone will not bring about any significant increase in bearing capacity. So large width will however always increase the total load bearing capacity of a footing because of the larger area. Next is the depth of footing. So an increase in the depth of footing, depth of foundation will result in increase in surcharge at the base level of the foundation, leading to an increase in a bearing capacity. So the increase is of consequence only when the soil is not in a loose deposit. Unit weight of soil, right? So the unit weight of granular soil varies from 14 kilonewton per meter square from a loose soil. So uniform sand is to a maximum about 21 kilonewton per meter square for a mixed grain sand boulder mixture. The soil with a higher density will contribute a high bearing capacity. So higher density also means an increase of phi value and the consequent increase in a bearing capacity, right? So the equation of QU is equal to CNC plus gamma D at phi is equal to 0, NQ is equal to 1 and N gamma is equal to 0. From this equation, it can be seen that uh, many of factors which influence the bearing capacity of footing of granular soils are little significance in a coarser soil. So the bearing capacity of footing in a coarser soil is in fact unaffected by the width of the footing. So the total load carrying capacity increased when the width of the footing is increased. Since an increased width means an increased area of footing. So increasing the depth of foundation contributed to an increase in a bearing capacity only the extent of increased surcharge. So the net ultimate bearing capacity QU is equal to CNC, right? When the phi is equal to 0, bearing capacity factor NC is equal to 5.14 for a smooth base and 5.7 for the rough base of the footing. So the bearing capacity of footing in a cohesive soil are dependent mainly on the undrained cohesion C of the soil. Last is the eccentricity of loads, right? So due to eccentric loading, the effective dimension of footings are reduced, right? So equation of b dash is equal to b minus 2ex, l dash is equal to l minus 2ey, a dash is equal to b dash multiplied by l dash. So the bearing capacity of footing is also reduced.